So I don't know if you silence your phone or anything.
Yeah, because then it's gonna speak like nobody's business with
It
the
may interrupt, so if you want to silence it.
3 notifications. Speech off.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, because if not, oof.
That's one of the things you do. I love. We'll talk. I want to ask you about your phone in a minute. Guys, this is our first live in-studio dojo discussions video. Now, usually when you watch these videos, you see me and somebody else on Zoom. But today I have my good friend, Professor Carlos Alvarez. He's here in the studio because he came to do something very cool for us this week, actually last night. And I'm going to get to him and we're going to talk all about it. Before we do that, if you're new to the channel, Disciple Dojo, this is a biblical dojo, a place to come and to train, to be challenged, to grow, to have things that you believe put through the rigor of Scripture. And just like in a real dojo, yesterday when we were training, we were trying to strangle each other and trying to break each other's arm and trying to, choke each other. And that's how we get better through our training, is actually by sparring with each other. And it's the same thing with our biblical faith, our discipleship. We don't grow unless we spar, unless we have a safe, controlled environment where we can come together and make each other better. And that's what Disciple Dojo is here to do. So if you're new to this channel, click around on a playlist here on our YouTube channel, see some of our video studies, see our superhero seminary short videos, see our different interviews, our study Bible reviews. All of this material, it's entirely free, thanks to our dojo donors, those of you that give faithfully to this ministry and help us do this. We really appreciate it. If you would like to support us after watching this interview, I'm going to have a link in the description below. One more thing before we jump in. If you have not already, check out our Disciple Dojo online store. We have a number of designs. They're Jiu-Jitsu related, some are Bible related, some are a little bit of both. So whatever type of nerd you are, Bible nerd, Jiu-Jitsu nerd, check out Disciple Dojo store. Everything you buy there helps this ministry out. You get some fun stuff, and you help raise the awareness for Disciple Dojo. So, without further ado, we are here with my friend, Professor Carlos Alvarez. How are you today, sir?
Good, very good. Thank you
Yeah.
for this invitation. It has been a wonderful time, and
We've had fun. We've had a good time. It's been 2.5 days. We met on social media. We connected because of a Mat Made. If you haven't seen Carlos's Mat Made video, go follow Mat Made on Instagram. They did a wonderful video, not just on him, but on a number of really inspiring people in Jiu-Jitsu, a couple of whom I know personally. And we connected through that, and I knew this guy needed to come visit Disciple Dojo. His story is pretty amazing, and I'm going to have him tell you a little bit about himself, but then we're just going to talk because I want to ask him all kinds of stuff. For those of you that don't know, Carlos is completely blind. He is also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He teaches, he trains, he competes at the highest level in IBJJF competition. He's got a competition coming up tomorrow, actually, down in Charleston. So we are excited. You're the first you're the first athlete we've had here at Disciple Dojo. I usually have PhD Bible people or pastors. You're the first. Yeah, you're the first athlete.
What a honor, what a privilege to be the first Jiu-Jitsu athlete in this podcast.
Yes, I'm not the athlete. I am the coach, the teacher. My competition days are probably mostly in the past, but you're at the beginning of the peak of your career when you're coming into your own. Yeah. So that's exciting. So tell our watching viewers, how would you introduce yourself to somebody that didn't know anything about you, where you come from, or your story?
So my name is Carlos Alvarez. I am 29 years old. I am from a little country in South America called Ecuador. I've been living in Miami, Florida, USA for almost 8 years. I am a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for almost 13 years, and I have 2 years as a black belt. I am a baby black belt, and I am totally blind. I was born with a congenital glaucoma. I lost my eyesight completely 10 years ago. I always suffered in my life with this glaucoma, so my vision was not that perfect. I always have like some little issues with my eyes, and when I was 15, I lost my sight on my right eye from one day to other, and then little by little I started to lose my sight on my left eye. Basically, I try to show to the people that nothing is impossible. I am a super strong believer in Jesus Christ, and I always put everything in the hands of God, and I am pretty sure that God is the one that gives me the strength to continue fighting every day and to continue helping me in whatever thing that I need to do or that I need to face in the everyday life. So basically, that's my little introduction.
That's a perfect introduction. And it's one is yes, God does bless you tremendously because of I've seen your faith and your determination and also your family, the bond you have, especially getting to spend the past couple of days with you and your mother and your aunt. That's been really cool to see, and we'll talk about some more about that because you and I have that in common. We both have very strong, godly family that supports us, and it's huge. But I want to back up for a minute. So when you were born with congenital glaucoma,
Mhm.
when you were small, like when you were little child, was there ever a time where your eyesight was normal, or were you always have difficulty seeing from the time you were even when you could see? Tell me a little bit about that because that's fascinating to me.
So when I was a little kid, like my eyesight was already failing, but I didn't know because I never asked to the people how
Mhm.
was their sight, you
Right,
know.
right.
So I was thinking that was fine until I found out about the problem when I was 15 that I lost
Mhm.
my right eye from one day to other.
So
That
one
was
day your right eyesight just went out.
yeah.
So you just had vision in your left eye.
And then I asked to my family, "Hey, mom." I remember that I asked to my mom, like, "Mom, I cannot see with my right eye. I don't know what is happening." So
Mm.
she freaked out and she took me to the eye doctor immediately.
Mm.
And they gave us the bad news that I was born with
Yeah.
congenital glaucoma and that I was going to become
Yeah.
blind. And it
So
was
did
sad.
you, when you were younger, were you able to, did you have trouble seeing like between light and dark or color, differentiating colors? Because other people are talking about maybe these colors or this lights or these things that I can't see as well. Like, how did you?
Yeah, I used to have like some little problems with the lights.
Mm.
The lights were too strong for me, and sometimes that the lights be make my vision be a little bit blurry.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, why this is happening, you
Right.
know? And then sometimes, for example, my father used to do everything in the house. He's
Mm.
a very smart person, and he could fix whatever thing that is broken, you
Mhm.
know. And he used to teach me and my brother to fix the stuff and everything. For me, it was complicated, like for example, one day we bought a table, but in the supermarket that we bought the table, you had to like fix the table, like
Put it together.
put it
Yeah.
together, and you need to like
Instructions. Mm.
follow the instructions and use the tools in
Right.
order to adjust the table. And so my brother was doing awesome
Mhm.
everything, but when I tried to adjust it, it was hard. I couldn't do it. And I was thinking that something bad was happening to me because I couldn't see very well how
Mhm.
to do the adjustments of the table, and it was hard.
It was hard to, was it hard to read the instructions or hard to actually see the pieces
The
in the
pieces.
so yeah, those little
Yeah.
screws and things
Yeah.
to put together.
Hmm.
Man, but you didn't know until you were 15
Yeah.
when you lost, and that's when your family found out that
Yeah.
you had glaucoma.
Mhm.
So when you were 15 then, but how long was it between when you lost your right eye sight completely and when your left eye, when you lost all of the rest of your sight? How long a period was that?
It was 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah, because I became totally blind when I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I became totally blind because I had 2 surgeries
Mm-hmm.
on my eyes. Because what happened with the glaucoma is that we all have a optic nerve in
Mm-hmm.
our brain, and this optic nerve help us to see, right?
Right.
So this optic nerve has a pressure, and the glaucoma, what it does is that makes the pressure of the optic nerve go up,
Mm-hmm.
like extremely up.
Uh-huh.
And when that happens, you start to lose your sight. So they had a surgery, they put the pressure down. They put some like a little shunts on each eye so that the pressure could be down, and
Mhm.
also to maintain the pressure in the correct
Right.
level,
Give you
right?
the right amount of pressure
Yeah.
that your eye, optic nerve would need.
So, but my pressure was too high that the doctors were a little bit afraid and concerned. So
Mhm.
they told me that they could have two possibilities of this surgery. The first possibility was that I was going to be able to recover a little bit more of my sight of on my left eye, and that the things will be right. I was going to be like a legally blind person, but I was going to be fine, you know.
Right.
And then the second option was that in a few months later that I could lost my sight completely.
So you had it was either it will help a little bit, not ever perfect, but it will help some, or it could go bad and you could miss it, lose all your
Like
eyesight.
lost everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you? What did you think initially when you were given that choice?
I always try to be positive, you
Mhm.
know, because I think when you are positive, the things
Mhm.
go well, you know.
Now, let me ask you this: if you had not had the surgery at all, your vision would have continued to decline.
Yeah.
So it was basically it's going to eventually you're going to lose your vision if we don't do anything.
Yeah.
So we can try this, and
Mhm.
if it doesn't work, then you'll end up what's going to happen anyway.
Yep.
I know that's got to be scary. How was it? How did your family respond to all of that? How were they during this process? Because for us, sometimes when we have something wrong with us, we can handle it or deal with it our own way. But for people, our family, it's really hard, or people watching
Super tough.
that care about us. So how did they deal with it?
For them was very bad news. They
Mhm.
were super sad.
Mm.
And my father got depressed. My mother also, she got super depressed. But also in that time, my family was having some issues, some problems. My parents got separated. So it was like a two shot, super strong.
Right.
But they were also super sad because of my situation, but they
Mhm.
tried to help me.
Mhm.
Especially my father. My father helped me a lot in that season because when they got separated, I decided to go to live with my father.
Mhm.
And my father supported me so much, and he was always taking me to the doctors. He was always looking for a solution to fix my eyes, you know.
Mhm.
So, but my mother also, she was always praying for me. She was always calling me and worry and concern. It
Yeah.
was a bad news because all the parents want the best for
Yeah,
their
they want their
children,
kids.
you
The
know.
worst thing is a parent watching their kid in pain or watching their kid
Yeah.
depressed or suffering. So
Mhm.
I can imagine how tough that would have been on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you had the surgery. Now, when you had already started jiu-jitsu by this point, right?
Yeah, I was a blue belt with 2 stripes.
Yeah, so starting jiu-jitsu with some eyesight, and then finishing, or well, we both know you never finish jiu-jitsu. You just start over when you get your black belt. But getting to black belt, getting to that starting over point without sight, that's a huge accomplishment, you
Thank you
know.
very
And
much.
I mean, we had a great time. I want to hear your thoughts on our training session yesterday and what we did, because we've trained together twice now.
Yeah.
The first night, Carlos came and taught a class for us at Leadership Martial Arts, Renzo, Gracie, Charlotte. He taught the kids class there, and then he taught my Wednesday night class in the gi, he was the instructor there. And at the end of class, we got to roll. And then the next morning, he texted me on WhatsApp at maybe like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. sometime early. I'm not a
Yeah.
morning person. He is a morning person.
Yes.
And we're filming this in the morning. For the record, it is like 8:30 right now. Oh, it's 9. Okay. So we this is way earlier than I'm ever awake. But he texted me the next morning a voice message. Was so excited. Hey, can we go train? I'd like to train. I want you to show me this. And so we ended up going and training at lunch. What was that like for you?
Well, super cool. But first of all, I want to say something. So the first role that when I got the opportunity to do the seminar, I rolled with the Professor J, and he
J,
choked
you got to say JM because my mom's
JM.
watching this, and the M
Okay.
is important.
So
James
with
Michael, so you got to get them both. So JM.
so I rolled with the first roll with the Professor JM,
Mhm.
and he choked me with an super good Ezequiel choke, and I was like, wow, that was so awesome, because I was not expecting, because he did it from a very specific position that is kind of hard to submit people from that position. I was doing close guard, and he was inside of my close guard, and I was like, there is no way that he could choke me when he was trying, and then he did it. And I was like, whoa, that was so awesome. And I was thinking about it all the night. I was able to sleep good, but then when I got up at 5:30, 6 a.m., I was like, whoa, that was so awesome. I need to ask him to teach me how to do this, because like it's amazing. So I sent him a message, and he was able to tell me that he wanted to teach me. And so we have in the morning we had a private class. He taught me all the details of how to dominate the Ezequiel, and it was so cool. It was one of the best classes that I had ever had in my life. Like, the Professor JM is a super good instructor. He explained the techniques really well.
I appreciate that. I appreciate, and what was cool about it was, I liked working with you because it makes me have to be. Let me tell you, if you want to be a better teacher, teach someone who doesn't have the ability to watch what you're doing, and they have to listen to what you're saying, and they have to feel what you're
Yeah,
doing.
exactly.
It makes me, and Professor TC, I think, would agree too. My instructor, it makes us have to be much better teachers, because you can't just say, yeah, watch this, do this, put your hand here. And so as an instructor, I had to, there were a lot of things I've taught, that number of Ezequiel variations. If you're watching this, by the way, Ezequiel is a choke in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu using your sleeve or your own hand to compress the carotid arteries. It's named after a judo player who went to Brazil, Ezequiel. I can't remember his last name. I think it started with a P. But he would use a common judo move, Sotoguruma Jame, which is a sleeve choke, and he started choking out all these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, and it wasn't a common move. So the story goes, as Renzo tells it, that they started calling it the Ezequiel. They just named it after the guy that did it on them. And so they called it the Ezequiel choke, and he never knew. He went back to wherever and never knew that they were calling this choke after him. But as a Bible teacher and an Old Testament guy, of course, the prophet Ezekiel, I love the book of Ezekiel.
Me too.
And so that's not why it's my favorite choke, but the Ezequiel choke is definitely my favorite choke, and it's so underrated. I see on forums all the time on the internet, people laugh like, "Oh, you'll never submit me in my guard." And I just think, well, okay, but you really can. If I can, if somebody can get your neck and your hands are below your waist, no matter what position you're in, you're open for a choke. So I've never understood that disdain that people have for Ezekiel's. Were you taught you were taught it before, the Ezequiel choke? Did you learn it as like beginning, like I did, and then put it away?
Like a lot professors taught me how to do it, but I never pay attention too much to
Right.
it, because it was not that effective when
Mhm.
people try to do it to me. Like, I've been training for real. I've been training for 13 years. I think only 3 persons had done Ezekiel chokes on me, and that's it. Because I always defend myself. I consider that I had a very good defense skills, and basically I didn't have too much faith in the Ezekiel choke
Right.
until 2 days ago that you did it to me, and I was like, whoa, because I had a super good friend that Her name is Dana Greenlee. I hope
Mhm.
she's gonna be able to see this video. She's super Christian too, and
What's her
she's
name, Dana?
available. Dana
Dana?
Greenlee.
Dana, I hope you're watching this.
So basically, she loves Ezequiel's too, and she's always
Yes, I
talking to
love
me
her already.
about Ezequiel's, and I was like, no, Ezequiel doesn't work. Nobody could choke me with that, and then you choked me so easily, and I was like, whoa.
Well, let's be clear with the audience. I did hit it on you once, and then I tried all day when we rolled again, and we rolled for 30 minutes straight.
Yeah.
We had a long roll, no timer. It was just he and I could not hit it again because your defense was, you were doing all the things that we had talked about, and I don't think anybody's going to hit it on you for a long time after this because I think your defense for it is really good. He has an amazing guard, you guys. His Carlos's closed guard. For those of you that do jiu-jitsu, I know some Bible people are watching this and they don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, so we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But for those of you that are grapplers, his closed guard is very good, and his control, tightness, lasso guard, arm bars from closed guard, everything that involves keeping connection. Because obviously he's not able to see what his opponent's doing, but the beauty of jiu-jitsu, you don't have to see. Once you put hands on someone, then you know what they're doing. Because even if I have my hand on your arm and you move your other leg or your other arm, it transmits through your body, and I can feel it a little bit, or at least can sense what you're doing. And so that's one of the reasons that jiu-jitsu is tailor-made for not just for people with blind, but for many other disabilities. I've seen jiu-jitsu do amazing things for people.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, tell me, what's a technique? Let's talk jiu-jitsu for a little bit. What's the first submission that you ever really felt comfortable, like this is my move, or I understand this? And at what belt level were you when that happened?
I was a white belt,
Mhm.
and in the beginning for me was super tough because I was super skinny, very weak, and all my classmates were huge, way bigger than me. I was the skinniest one and the youngest one. So all my classmates already have like a good level of jiu-jitsu, so they used to smash me
Mhm.
every day. Every day. I suffered for almost 5 months.
Mhm.
I suffered every day. I
Starting
used to
out?
tap every day. I remember that I used to go to my house and I used to cry because I received a lot bullying in high school, and also like people used to tap me in the gym all the time. So I was like, why God, why this is happening to me? But then my mother was always telling me, don't give up. You're gonna get good. Don't give up. Continue
Mhm.
going. And I used to go like every day.
The
And then
beauty is that the people that are, so the bullies at school, they don't want you to succeed. They don't have your best interest.
yeah,
But the people tapping you in jiu-jitsu, they
want to
want
help.
you to get better. So the goal
course.
is, hey, we're going to make you have to get better. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually you will. Like Renzo talks about, he says the key to this sport is you're the hammer. I mean, you're the nail, and you get hammered all the time, and you just keep showing up until one day you are no longer the nail, you become the hammer. And he says, and then you smash them back. So when did you start to turn that corner and find a move or a technique or a strategy that you started having success with?
So basically, my favorite unlock is the armbar.
Mhm.
Armbar from close guard.
Armbar from close
I love
guard.
the armbar from close guard. In the people in a gym that I used to train a long time ago, they used to call me the honor collector because I used to tap everyone with my. I still tapping a lot of people with my armbar.
You almost caught me with it. Only because I knew it was your move, and you told me,
Yeah.
but I was very on guard for it.
Yeah. So basically, like the first time that I realized that that was my move was when I have like a 5 months training. A kid almost on my same weight division came from other school to visit the school,
Mhm.
and it was a challenge because he was almost my same weight, my same age, and I was like, wow, this is gonna be cool because he also had the same time as me training. So my professor put me to roll with him, and I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be great because finally gonna be fighting against someone of almost my same weight.
Right.
So I pulled guard immediately, and I had him in my close guard. He couldn't open, and then I got his arm and I armbar him. And that was the first time ever in my life that I should meet someone in the gym. I was so happy. I felt like I won a tournament. I couldn't control myself. But even my professor was like, well, that was a beautiful armbar. So cool. And I was so proud about it. I got home and I told my mother, Mom, I did this. And she was like, wow, that's so awesome.
You never forget that first moment in jiu-jitsu, because for people that don't train, I teach not just my refugee kids class, but when I teach at Renzo, Gracie, Charlotte, most of the people in the classes I teach are beginners, are brand new white belts, and they're just starting. And some instructors, they only like to teach competition class or black belts or advanced classes. But my favorite students are the brand new white belts that don't know anything, because I get to watch them experience exactly what you're talking about. That moment where for months, and he's not kidding, people watching this, it is months usually before you feel like you can do anything in jiu-jitsu. You feel like you're drowning.
Tough.
You're just trying to tread water and keep your head above water, which is part of what makes jiu-jitsu so addictive for some people, is because they love that challenge. They finally come and do something and they're not immediately good at it. But for other people, it makes them want to quit because they want to immediately be good at something. And that's part of, I think, I'm everybody that does jiu-jitsu, they say that is a key aspect of jiu-jitsu, is teaching you that humility. No matter who you are, I came into jiu-jitsu with over 20 years of martial arts training, but I'd never grappled. And so my 20 years of martial arts training was worth zero on the mat, because I got tapped out repeatedly. And so why do you think armbar was your thing? Why did you think that move came naturally to you?
I don't know. Like, the thing is, what happened is that the first submission that I saw that my friend that introduced me into jiu-jitsu did was like a flying
Oh
armbar.
yeah, that's right. When you
And
still
I,
had your sight, your friend
yeah.
showed you demonstrating, and he showed a flying armbar.
So he was doing a flying armbar to another guy, and I was like, whoa! I love immediately that lock, and I asked to my professor, please show me armbars. And he showed me the armbar from closer, and I felt so comfortable because of the connection that you have with your opponent when you are doing close guard. Because when you're doing close guard, you are able to feel your opponent's body completely. So every move that he does, you're gonna be able to feel it.
Yeah,
Especially if you are controlling the lapels and the arms, it's very easy to control your opponent. So that's why I felt so comfortable.
Yeah, let me unpack for those, because again, we have mixed audience maybe that are watching this. If you don't know jiu-jitsu, closed guard is when one opponent is on their back and the other opponent, it seems like they're winning because they're on top. If it were a fight and you didn't know any martial arts, you'd say, well, that person's on the bottom and that person's on the top, so the person on the top must be winning. But what closed guard is, it's jiu-jitsu's signature position. There's no other martial art where closed guard is considered an actual position. In wrestling, you're getting pinned because you're on your back. I think in Sambo, you're getting pinned because you're on your back. So they other martial arts, even other grappling arts, don't see the value, or I should say this way, they see the value. Their sport doesn't reward being on your back the way jiu-jitsu doesn't penalize you for it. So closed guard, you're on your back, and you use your legs to wrap around your partner. And so your hands are free to engage and grab their posture, their wrist, to keep you from getting punched or to defend yourself. And your legs are holding them in place. So you're using all four of your weapons. And your opponent, they're on their knees or they're standing over you. They just have their hands. And I think that's one of the genius aspects of having a good closed guard. I noticed rolling with you, and even you teaching the techniques you've taught these past couple of days, it's all about getting a lot of connection. I did not know. I don't play a lot of lasso guard, and you explain the difference between a regular lasso guard and a deep lasso guard, or would you say deep and shallow, or
deep and shallow?
Deep and shallow lasso guard. I'd never known that there was a difference between the two in terms of technical or in terms of terminology. So you were able to show me, and as soon as you showed me, it made so much more sense, because a shallow lasso guard, you don't have a
It's not
lot
that
of
deep.
connection.
Mhm.
But the deep lasso guard, your leg really is lassoing their entire arm,
Mhm.
tying it up. And I'd never been to, so what you showed, just the lasso guard technique you showed, I'm going to be unpacking that next Wednesday and drilling it again with the class.
Oh, that's very
Yeah,
cool.
your class is going to continue next week. You won't be there, but I will continue unpacking that, because it made, the way you showed it made a lot of sense to me. How do you learn? Well, this is gonna be a weird question, but how do you learn jujitsu? And what I mean, I don't mean being blind. How do you learn jujitsu? I'm gonna ask you about that in a minute. But what I mean is, some people learn by doing. They have to do it. They're called kinesthetic learners. You tell them something, it doesn't make sense. You show them something, it doesn't make sense. But when they do it themselves, their body movement makes it make sense in their brain. Other people are visual learners. They have to see it. You can tell them, you can show them, but they have to step away and see it from a further back perspective. And then other people are conceptual learners. And this is where I fall. I can see a move and it kind of makes sense. I can feel it and it starts to make a little more sense. But when somebody explains the theory behind the move, like, what are you trying to do at the end of the day? What is the big goal you're trying to accomplish? To me, then that's when all of the pieces fall into place. So I'll give you an example of why I say that, and then I want you to tell me, of those, what is your way. When you were showing lasso guard, I've been doing jiu-jitsu since 2007, 2006, 2007.
Wow.
Never played a lot of lasso guard. I would only use lasso guard to sometimes keep my partner from running around to pass my guard, because you can threaten a bicep slicer.
Mhm.
But I didn't really know why lasso guard existed or what it was used for, other than I knew you could get that technique from it. So I had a little bit of understanding. When you were showing it, what I realized, and for some people that play lasso guard, they're probably listening to this going, well, how is this guy a black belt? Everybody knows this. But jiu-jitsu is such a wide sport that there are techniques you don't learn even the process until you're a black belt.
True.
So I realized, watching you and then feeling it, lasso guard is a way of taking your opponent's base away so they cannot base in any direction. And when you did the second movement, where then you lasso around, not just the lasso guard on their arm, but then you use your foot to go under them and elevate, then in my mind, conceptually, I was thinking, oh, you've taken his ability to base away, and now he's if they're standing up, he's become a tower, and you're tipping the tower over. And if he kneels down into combat base, you have to take his leg base away as well. So you just take one more base, and then you're just tipping over a shorter tower. But so in my head, I'm just giving you an insight. That's how, when you were showing, I was breaking it down into these conceptual ideas. And now it makes way more sense to me than when somebody's like, okay, first you put your hand here, and now you're going to do this, and now you're going to do this. You know, the way some people teach jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
they don't explain why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a little insight. That's how I pick up jiu-jitsu well. Now, in terms of, I know visual, you've never been a visual learner when jiu-jitsu, because your eyesight has always been problematic. So you've had to be one of the other ways of learning. How do you best learn? How do you absorb techniques, and how do techniques make sense? Do you, in your mind, do you picture techniques, or do you think of them as feeling only? Or do you have to have your body do it before it makes sense? Or can you just pick things up if someone explains the concept to you?
I always think that in my case, for being blind, I think listening and feeling are the best two ways for me to learn. So whenever the professor is about to teach the technique in whatever school that I visit, I always ask to the professor to use me as the dummy, so that he could do the technique on me, and then I am able to feel it, right? So I try to feel every detail, every adjustment that he does with the body, and then I am super focused in what I am listening. I think one of the advantages of being blind is that you don't get distracted by the things that are around you.
Right.
Because sometimes you could have like some classmates talking or things happening around you,
Right,
and
right.
you get distracted and you're not watching the technique. So feeling and listening is so important in my case, and I think for everyone. Because even when I am teaching, I always tell my students, like, hey, close your eyes and do this with the eyes closed. And they do it, and it's so different, and they get it.
Yes.
Because when they are watching, when they are seeing, like, they cannot do the technique, they struggle. But when I tell them close the eyes, they do it, and it's amazing. So basically, I always try to get focus on feeling. Feeling and listening is so important. Then the professor does the technique on me. I have to make him repeat a couple of times because there are some techniques that have like a little bit of disconnection. So I need to touch with my hands, the legs, or what the professor is doing. And once I feel it and I know how to do it, I ask to the professor to let me do it on him. And if it's right, it's good, but if not, he corrects me and helps me.
Yeah. That's so TC, Professor TC, who you roll with, my instructor, he is a kinesthetic learner. He can hear a move, he can understand it, he can comprehend it, but he doesn't get it fully until he does it or feels it done to him. And I like that because there's something in jiu-jitsu you can learn, not just you doing the move, but for me, having somebody do the move on you. Then, especially as you get more advanced, and especially you're at a level now as a black belt where if somebody like when the Ezequiel choke, I managed to hit on you. Now I knew I was never going to hit that on you again. That's a one-time thing that once somebody hits it on you, you become so aware of how to block it again that you're able to defend it. But you feeling it, I knew, okay, he knows what adjustments to make. I just want to, and which in our lesson that we did, I just want to give him some tips and some concepts that will help him sense when he can do it in other positions and other times. And getting somebody to do a move on you really does make a difference.
Yeah.
Because you have to reverse
Huge
engineer.
difference, because it's way different than watching.
Yes.
Feeling is the best thing, because especially in Jiu-Jitsu, it's the sport that you need to have the most connection as possible with your opponent to get to the place that you need to go, and also to submit your opponent.
Do you find so you teach now, you have guys, I'm wearing, if you see this shirt, I'm wearing the shirt that Professor gave me, and it says, I support blind warriors. And Blind Warrior is your organization, your mission. So you do instruction for blind students. Is it located in Miami?
Yeah, it's in Miami.
And you offer free instruction for other visually impaired and blind people to do jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah.
What is the biggest hesitancy among visually impaired or blind people when it comes to just getting on the mat and trying it? What's their biggest fear or reservation, or what are they most uncertain about?
So whenever a blind person never had done any sport, they feel super insecure about it. They feel afraid, especially when they listen Jiu-Jitsu. Come to try Jiu-Jitsu. They are always thinking about karate or kung fu. So they are thinking about striking. So they are thinking that they are gonna get hurt or injured, and that someone is going to punch them or kick them, and they are thinking like, there is no way that I can do jiu-jitsu because I cannot see, right?
Right.
So, but whenever they face the fear and they come, I always try to treat them in the best way as possible. I am always guiding them to the mat. I help them with the uniform, and I always try to show them that it's a grappling style, and that if you have connection with your opponent's body, it's going to be great. And also that it's not a striking thing, so that they don't have to feel worried about it. And I always try to be present for whatever blind student that I have. I give my 100%.
Right.
to explain them. Obviously, because I cannot see, so like I need to be there for them because I understand what
Mhm.
means to be blind. That's why I think I am the perfect person to teach blind people because I
Sure.
understand the situation.
Yeah.
So basically, I always try to make them feel comfortable and feel everything because everything is about feeling. Because for the blind people, our hands are our eyes.
Uh-huh.
So basically, touching and listening is everything.
Yeah. So tell me about, because this is, and I've gotten to spend time with you the past couple of days. You know, I don't hesitate. I put my hand on, when I have to talk to you, I put my hand on your shoulder, or I touch, or I just to let you know, to get your attention, because so many of our cues, our conversational cues, are nonverbal and non-physical for seeing people. You can look at someone, or they can, with a look, you can tell if they're trying to get your attention, or if they're trying. So when I had, like when you were with the kids last night, I had to tell the kids, guys, don't just wave your hand, or don't wait for him, or try to nod, you know, like come up, you can tap him on the shoulder. If you're going to shake his hand, grab his hand. He can't see your hand.
Yeah.
And so there were some of them, you could see they weren't used to it. They loved you and they loved having you there. But I think we see, especially people that do have our sight, we take for granted how different a world it is for people that don't have sight, and how many things we do naturally that are non-verbal and non-tactile, that don't involve touch. So what are some things that people that see, how does seeing people, how can they make life easier for you, and other blind people? Like, what are things, tips, concepts that they should know? Is it okay to touch a blind person on the shoulder here and say hello, or should you wait for them to extend a hand? You know, give them some things like that, because a lot of people just don't know. They don't mean anything by it, but they just don't know, and so they feel awkward, and that makes them not want to engage with blind people. So what are some tips for everybody watching this?
So the first thing, don't feel uncomfortable when you are around a blind person, because maybe that blind person is needing help. Maybe that blind person is needing support to go to a place or something. So it's always good to touch the shoulder and to talk to the blind person, and also ask if the person needs help. Because
So did they not get in? Blind people won't be insulted because sometimes people think, oh, I don't want to ask. If I say, oh, do you need any help? They may think, no, I don't need any help. Why would you ask me that? I can do what I want. I'm capable. But you're saying they won't get offended or upset.
No, because if they are in a new place, they will feel that they need help. So it's always good to ask.
And you're tell me about the cane, because you told the kids last night it was a great tip, and I actually had never thought about it, but with the color of the cane.
So basically, when the color is completely white, that means that the person is completely blind. There are some different colors. That means that the other color, I don't remember what color is it, but it's like that means that the person is legally blind, that is able to see a little bit. I think it's green.
Okay.
But
a white cane means completely blind.
Completely blind.
And so you said when you see someone with a white cane, you should introduce yourself, or go up, or ask them if you can help in any way, or if they need anything. Yeah, that's really good, because I think some people are afraid. They don't want to sound condescending. The two reactions to blind people, they either think, I don't want to sound condescending, I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to him, or they're uncomfortable. They don't know what to do, and so they just stay away. People, and not just blind, other disabilities, people feel that way, like they have to stay away.
Yeah. In this case, don't do that, because that person might need your help. So the best thing to do is to ask, very polite, like say hello and then ask if the person needs help.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing to do. And always offer, when you are about to walk, if the person requires your help, always offer your shoulder.
Okay.
Never grab the guy and try to pull him, because that's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Always offer the shoulder, and he's going to place the hand on your shoulder, and you guys will be able to walk normal because the blind person is gonna be using his cane and it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, we walked over here from the hotel, and I was your seeing eye dog.
Yeah.
Bowie was he has a seeing eye dog named Bowie, sweetheart, who's just a big goofball and a very good. Bowie was so well behaved.
Yeah, super smart boy.
But without Bowie, he just put his hand on my shoulder. We walked right over, and I told him I wouldn't make him walk very far. It's annoying. I like when you said walking's annoying when you're blind, because especially in a new place. I want to ask specific questions because you've done a number of podcasts, and sometimes people ask you the same questions over and over, and I'm more interested in the questions that maybe you haven't been asked as much. I want to know. So you picked up armbars as your early move, but you learned that when you could see.
Yep.
So since you lost your sight completely, have there been moves, techniques that you've gotten better at, or that were new to you that you never saw before? You never learned them while you could see. You learned them as someone who was completely blind, and they just made sense to you.
Yeah.
Give me some example.
For example, the leg locks. I used to do the straight ankle lock when I was a white belt, but then I didn't know anything more. I used to know like a little bit of toe holds and that's it.
Right.
But then when I was a blue belt and I became totally blind, I didn't know anything. But my professors and my cousin, that he's also a Jiu-Jitsu black belt now, he helped me to learn leg locks.
Yeah.
And that was something completely new for me. And I felt so comfortable with that too.
Now, were leg locks, because for those who don't do jiu-jitsu, there's a division in jiu-jitsu. Some people love leg locks, and that's all they do. And it's like they don't know anything except how to attack legs. And then some people hate leg locks, and they won't even let their students do leg locks until sometimes purple. I've even heard of brown belts that don't know how to do leg locks. So coming up in your academy training growing up, how were leg locks viewed? Because you compete IBJJF, where many leg locks are frowned upon, and the ones that are allowed, they're very specific conditions. You can't reap the knee. You have very certain twisting locks you can't do. How were leg locks treated in your academy?
In my academy, they received the leg locks really well. And I used to have like a super crazy classmates that used to do knee bars, heel hooks, and all those type of techniques. And it was fine. My professor always have like a super open mind, and he always wanted to learn the new information and to teach the information and to apply every day the information. So. Yeah.
Were you allowed to gi, no gi? Did it matter? You could do them
gi,
all?
no gi, you can do it. Always asking to your partner. If your partner is okay, you can do it.
Renzo, Charlotte, because TC is the lineage from Renzo, and there's a lot more MMA focused, jiu-jitsu for MMA, as opposed to jiu-jitsu for just the gi. And a lot of also other martial arts influences, Sambo influences in his own instruction and TC's. So from white belt, we learned heel hooks, knee reaping, toe holds, everything in the gi. And because his rationale was, you are not going to have any control over what your opponent is wearing outside of a tournament.
True.
So you need to be able to defend, even if you don't attack leg locks, you need to have defense against leg locks, because most people that injure themselves, most leg lock injuries, not all, but most, are from the person defending it, twisting, spinning, doing some kind of sudden motion, and then their knee pops. And everybody thinks the bad guy is the person who is doing it, which sometimes it is, but most of the times, especially the injuries I've seen, it's the person who's not defending correctly, or they get scared.
Or also not tapping because they want to escape and they want to show that they are strong, and that's the biggest mistake.
Yes, they don't know the danger, because knee attacks can come on very fast, and before you feel the pain, sometimes there can be injury.
Yeah, especially the heel hooks. Heel hooks are super dangerous if the person don't tap.
Yeah, for those who don't know jiu-jitsu, heel hook is where you isolate the person's knee and thigh from moving, and then you use your body and your arms to turn, literally twist their foot at the heel in a direction so the upper leg is not moving, but the lower leg is rotating and something's going to pop. Usually it would be the ligaments around the knee or sometimes around the ankle, depending.
Could destroy your knee forever.
Yeah. My way of thinking as a black belt is don't avoid teaching that. Teach it correctly and teach the defense to it first. So when I teach heel hooks, before I ever teach any student how to do a heel hook, I teach them, okay, here's what a heel hook is. And if you get caught in this position, you know you need to tap before it hurts, because there's no happy ending from where you are right now.
It's true. And I agree. I think that everyone should teach in their schools how to defend and how to do it, because it's not only in the competition sport side, but only in this, also in the streets. Whatever thing could happen when someone is trying to attack you, and if you are able to grab his leg, you can defend yourself really well. So and you can break the leg of the person that is attacking you. It's good.
It's all part of defense. I'm going to scoot you over your chair. You're on a rolling chair. It's sliding a little bit out of frame here. And I'm not going to edit this out. I'm going to leave this in because I think that's funny. This chair moves away. Yes, I've seen any technique can be used in a defense situation. Even sport jiu-jitsu techniques, there's a place for everything. You just have to know how to apply it, and it's the skill of the person doing it. And now some things are not, maybe not, like, deep half guard, maybe not the best thing to do if somebody's hands aren't controlled and they're punching you. But even in a scramble, in a self-defense scramble situation where the person's trying to grab, they're not really punching, even deep half guard could have self-defense scenarios. Let you pop out the back, take them over. So I think every technique has some kind of merit.
I truly believe that, yes, for every technique for Jiu-Jitsu has a self-defense. How I can say, like a self-defense.
An application for self-defense.
Application for something,
Have you ever trained with any kind of striking on the ground? Have you ever done rounds where your partner puts on boxing glove or?
No, never.
You gotta try that sometime.
I was like a little bit afraid of striking.
That's
why for me it was kind of hard to practice a martial art, because I was always a super good kid. Even I received so much bullying, but I never wanted to punch nobody. That was my problem, because all the kids used to bother me and make pranks and put nicknames and invited me to fight, but I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to punch them. So striking for me was a very difficult thing. Not only because of my vision problems, but also because my personality. I will never punch someone in the face, no matter what. And then when I found Jiu-Jitsu, was like, whoa, this is a very cool way to control and to submit, and it's a soft art, So
it would be. I think I would be interested to see now you as a black belt, if we were rolling, if I had MMA gloves on and was doing some light, not unloading on you, but throwing punches, I still think you could defend against punches because of that connection. I think because of the feeling, and having rolled with you, I think it wouldn't be easy to get punches on you. That's why I was asking if you had ever tried that, because of your feel and your connection so good that maybe next time you come we can play around with.
That would be funny. We can try.
You would. I think you would really. We do it sometimes. With my students, I will have one of the volunteers, like at RefugeeJitsu, I'll have a volunteer put on boxing gloves and get on top of the kid like a bully, holding them down. And then I tell the student, okay, now you have to get them off. You have to bump and roll and get an escape. But we talk about the principles of, in order for him to punch you, his hands have to be up in the air. So if you keep his balance off where he's having to balance his hands on the ground, he's not punching you. So it's a lot of that jiu-jitsu aspect of not blocking punches, but making your partner be in positions where they can't punch because they're using their hands for balance.
That they don't have the correct angle to punch you.
Right. So that would be maybe
That
maybe
would
in
be
the
very
future.
interesting.
Maybe in the future we'll
Yeah,
do a little
for sure.
mixed, throw in a little
We
striking
can
in
do a
there.
video about it too.
Yes, we'll do it instructional. And I think if you were able to get a good punch on my face, I think you would enjoy it. I think you would like how it feels. There's a lot of people watching Disciple Dojo videos that probably want to punch me sometimes when I don't agree with them on a biblical topic or something like that. So now you are a Christian. You're very open about your faith.
Yep.
And Disciple Dojo, we are our Christian ministry. I think I'm going to do a podcast interview next week with someone on can Christians practice martial arts. So if somebody said to you, hey, Carlos, okay, you're a Christian. You always talk about Jesus and about church, but yet you do martial arts, which teaches you to choke people and break arms and take people down. So I thought Jesus said, turn the other cheek. What are you doing training martial arts? You're doing the devil's work. You should quit and just go live in a monastery and sing hymns all day.
I
What
had
would you
listened
say?
that many times. A lot of people, like for example, my mother, she was a pastor in my country, so she used to be surrounded by a lot of women that go to church. And when my mother used to tell them, hey, my blind son is a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner and he's doing this, and then they were like, no, he cannot do that, that belongs to the devil, that's crazy, because they get confused with other martial arts that they do meditations and stuff like that, and also the action of the violence, right? I had listened many people telling me that, but I always tell them that in a really difficult situation, you will not. If someone comes to attack you, and you will not that person kill you just because you want to love that person. You need to defend yourself. You need to survive, you know. I always tell that the life is like a jiu-jitsu fight. Why? Because if you let the people take advantage of you, if you let the people do mean things to you all the time and you don't do nothing about it, then you will suffer like nobody's business and you will have a big loss in your life always. But that's why you have to fight for every activity that you do in this life. In order to success, you have to be positive and fight. Every day is a battle. So for example, what happens if you are doing a jiu-jitsu competition, right? And your opponent start to attack you and you don't do anything about it. What is going to happen?
You're going to lose.
Yeah, the guy is going to pass your guard, is going to put knee on belly and choke you, right? So, but that's why you need to defend yourself. Then you have to attack and win. And some days we are going to win. We're going to have good days, amazing days that we will feel wonderful and super great. And some days we're going to lose because everybody taps, right? So the life is like that. Some days we have good days, some days we have bad days, and I always recommend the people to practice martial arts. I don't believe that this belongs to the devil, because also in the Bible, if you guys read the Old Testament, God was always helping Israel in their wars against the other countries or towns that were their enemies, right? So God was always telling to Israel, like, go to protect yourself and continue surviving and don't pay attention, just go. And that's something that is very impressive, because we believe that God is super good, that God is love, right? But when we read the Old Testament and we see all these conflicts and wars, we wonder, like, what happened, right?
That's a lot. I get a lot of that on Disciple Dojo because we look at passages in the Old Testament that seem disturbing to people, and there's a lot going on in those passages, because sometimes the language of the Bible itself uses hyperbole. It uses exaggeration when it talks about all the earth coming to Joseph to buy grain. And it doesn't mean all the earth, it just means people from all over. And so there are scholars, Old Testament scholars say in the battle accounts when God says, wipe them out, and uses the phrase, women, children, animals, everything that has breath, don't let it live. There's a technical term that he's employing that you see in other battle language in the ancient Near East, and it's not literal in the fullest sense, because like the example is in sports, when you're talking like if you go this weekend and you compete and let's say you lose very badly to one match. If you were to come back and somebody says, "Oh, Carlos, how did you do?" and you say, "I got destroyed." You didn't literally get destroyed, but you got beat so badly that you just said, "I got destroyed," or "I got killed." And when you come to Old Testament passages in the Bible, there's questions about God's using battle language, and God is presenting himself as a warrior. But some of those passages that we struggle with, and we go, "Oh God, wait a minute, this, even for you, this seems too much." Some of those, I think one of the things that people need to take into account is that the language is like that language of exaggeration, because you will have, the reason I say this, and when you read the Old Testament, God will say in Joshua, it'll say, and they wiped out all of these people, and it'll give the whole names of the city. Then in Judges, the very next book, it says, now people who were still in the land, who they did not drive out, rose up and did such and such. So it lets us know that even though the first account says they drive them out, destroy them, utterly destroy them, when you actually read what actually happens, it wasn't everyone that was driven out. It was the warriors. So the language of wipe them out is usually reserved to what we would call military battles. Not going to a peaceful village or going to a tent or some random person and just saying, "Oh, well, you're not on our side, so I'm going to kill you." But it was military battles. And like you talked about that image in the Old Testament, God uses warfare imagery a lot, even in the New Testament. The idea of spiritual war. And of course, we don't battle against flesh and blood. Our enemies aren't people that have other faiths or other beliefs or other ethnicities, but rather it's, there's a spiritual enemy that hates all of us, and the things in your life that are miserable can usually be traced back to that influence in the world and our going along with it, which we call sin, and helping people see that the world beyond what's going on the everyday level. The spiritual eyes, helping open the spiritual eyes.
So basically, that's why I feel like God is a warrior, and I am pretty sure that God invented Jiu-Jitsu. There are many stories of who invented the Jiu-Jitsu, but I am pretty sure that God gave to the human being the ability to learn it, because He's God, He can do everything. For Him, nothing is impossible. And even His angels fight against the demons. And they fight. It's a battle, for the souls. So I am thinking that maybe they fight for real, they do martial arts, maybe they fight like a real fights, like when we see the movies, the wars, maybe it could be something like that, but we don't know, right?
Well, I tell you, in the ancient world of the Bible, in the world back when the Bible was written, all of the other faiths, all of the other peoples, Babylonians, Egyptians, the Canaanites, they all believed that whenever an earthly king battled another earthly king, two armies battled, that what was really happening was the heavenly armies were battling. And the results on the ground were the results of who won the heavenly battle. So when the Egyptians beat the Babylonians, it would be because the Egyptian gods were stronger than the Babylonian gods.
They used to have that belief.
And so what happens then in the Old Testament, when you see Israel not having a massive army, like in the days of Gideon, for instance, saying, okay, no, just give me 300, whittle it down to just a few faithful. We don't need thousands, just give me a few hundred. And then when they win the battle, they don't even attack. They blow the trumpets, they shatter the pots, they come screaming with torches, and the enemies are defeated among themselves, or they flee in panic. God does that in the Old Testament a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very powerful message sending to the people in the ancient world of the gods of your nations are not gods. They aren't ruling. There's only one God who rules, and it's Yahweh.
Yeah.
And he doesn't need an army to fight his battle for him if he doesn't want to. He can use the ocean, the split,
he can do whatever he wants to destroy the enemy, you know. So.
And the most transformative battle is when you beat the enemy by turning them into your friend. And in the New Testament, reaching across and using the implements of love and service and self-sacrifice that's your victory over someone, you know, because you've removed an enemy, you've created a friend.
You create a friend.
And so now you don't have an enemy, so you beat them. And that's part of Jiu-Jitsu, which is a good mindset, is it's the gentle art.
Yeah, because, for example, you and I, now we are very good friends, but yesterday when we were rolling, we were trying to choke each other and break our arms and everything, but we're fine. We love each other, we are super good, we had a good relationship, and we trust in each other when we are fighting, so it's something very cool.
It creates that bond, training together. I tell people that Jiu-Jitsu creates a different level of trust. Because you're literally putting your life in someone's hands. Because if you tap and they keep choking, that's it. You die.
Yeah.
And or your arm breaks, or your leg snap. You know, so you have to trust the people you're training with, and it's so cool because it creates that trust among people who you normally might not trust.
Yes.
But because you both come together in Jiu-Jitsu, you're learning. It's a very neat way of drawing people together and building friendships. And that's one of the things that I like most, and why Disciple Dojo is themed around martial arts and Jiu-Jitsu, is because some of the best friends and the people that I trust most, I met in martial arts. I met them trying to strangle each other.
Yeah.
And I always joke, my best friends try to choke me every day.
And it's true.
Yes, yeah.
And they go for real. It's real choking.
They really do try to choke me, or they really do try to make me tap by, forcing to break my arm. And it's people that don't do it. I think a lot of the Christian opposition to Jiu-Jitsu is, one, like you said, they don't know what Jiu-Jitsu is. They think it's Kung Fu
or yoga
or meditation of some spiritual realm, or they think you're invoking some ancient ancestors to give you chi power so that you can move objects. Because there's all that fake nonsense out there about the chi power stuff that is just absolute garbage. And they think it's something that it's not.
Yeah, unfortunately, they have very close mind, and they are a little bit ignorant. They don't know what is it, and they don't want to know about it, and they are so close mind that if you want to explain it, they just say, no, that belongs to the devil. No. They don't agree with you.
It's so frustrating when Christians are like that. I don't mind if a Christian is ignorant of Jiu-Jitsu, and they think, even if they think it's from the devil, they think it's a dark art, they think it's something. Or they think it's UFC and it's going to be brutal and violent and bloody and whatever. Okay, I don't mind if that's what they believe, if they will be open to me saying, okay, can I show you why it's not that? And if they will listen, and even at the end of the day, if they're still not convinced that it's okay for them to train, and they're just like, I still just don't have a good feeling about it, to me, I'm okay with that, because at least they listened and they aren't telling other people you can't do it, which is different. But if they're so like, well, I'm not comfortable with that, I'm okay with that. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We all have our personal convictions. But it's especially Christians who are dogmatic about, no, it's wrong, not just for me, it's
Yeah.
wrong for you, it's wrong for everyone.
Mhm.
And they act as if that's a biblical, justifiable position.
Yeah, I had met a few people like that, and I like, okay, no matter what you tell me, I'm gonna continue doing it, because what happened is that I always wanted to learn how to defend myself, and I always put God and Jesus in first place, always. And I remember, like, before giving the step of faith of going to the Jiu-Jitsu class, I pray and I ask, please, Lord, let me know if this is good, if you allow me to go to practice this martial art. I ask him for a confirmation and for permission, right?
Yeah.
And one of the chapters or characters from the Bible that I really like is the King David. The King David for me is so cool because God raised him and used him in many good ways. And if you see the story of the King David, he was always fighting. He was always going to war, and he killed Goliath. Goliath was a giant, the biggest giant in the planet, I think. And David was super brave that he went to fight against him, and God gave him the victory.
I love, what I love about the David story? We have a video here where we teach on David and Goliath and how big of a giant was he, and there's different Hebrew manuscripts that say different size, or different Greek manuscripts that say different height for Goliath, but either way he was gigantic.
Yeah.
Because people in the ancient world were small. The average height of a full-grown, how tall are you? How tall are you?
I am 5'6", 5'7".
Okay, so you would be taller than, because the ancient people in Israel, ancient time, about 5'3" was the size of a man, a full-grown man. So Goliath, even if Goliath was 6'5", 6'6", he was still an absolute giant.
Yeah.
And God gave David the victory over him. But the beautiful, the coolest thing about that story, to me, because it's all a story about God. David was just obedient, and he wanted to be, he was an instrument, and he was holding to the covenant, and there's so much in that story. But he learned his skill that he used to beat Goliath by doing his daily work as a shepherd.
Yeah.
His daily boring routine, because being a shepherd is boring. You're just following sheep around and making sure they don't get lost and taking them to grass.
Take care of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And in his day-to-day routine, you do have to, if you're a shepherd, you have to keep away the wild animals, which back in the ancient times, there were many more than there are today. And so it was like David, I don't think he was ever thinking while he was out watching his dad's sheep, like, I'm learning to be a great leader or a great king or a great warrior. He was not. He was the runt of the litter. He was the nobody in the family. He was the youngest brother, the smallest, probably the skinniest, and the least physically dominant. His older brothers were soldiers able to serve in Saul's army. And God said, I'm going to use the least expected,
the weakest one,
to get this victory over the strongest and most powerful enemy. And it was solely through him preparing him by being a shepherd.
Yeah.
And there's such beauty in that. And it's when I, I think your story and your testimony, and when I say testimony, I don't just mean you saying and speaking about your faith, because we talked about last night in the car, how speaking your faith is part of it.
Yep.
And it's an important part of it.
Yep.
But living your faith and being consistent on a day-to-day basis, and people meeting you off the mats and being like, oh, he's just as nice off the mats, oh, he's just as dedicated off the mats. He's seeing who you really are. That will tell them more about the God you serve than any sermon you ever preach.
True.
And you are, I think you are the exact pattern in Scripture of God using what society would say, the guy's blind, he's skinny, he's blind, He's from a little country that we don't even know about, Ecuador.
Ecuador, yeah.
Ecuador. Okay, yeah. So all of these things, people look at that and go, no, he's not gonna amount to much. And yet, last week, silver medal in Miami,
Mhm.
competed against Joao Miao.
Yeah.
You've competed against him a number of times.
Mhm.
High level competition, and then this weekend as well, whoever you will end up competing. To me, that's a really cool testimony of what God can do with a person.
Thank you very much. It means a lot for me. And I am always trying to glorify the name of God in everything because I am an instrument in His hands and He has taken care of me always since I was in my mother's womb,
Mhm.
And the life hasn't been easy because nothing is easy in this life. Everything is difficult. That's why we need to fight for what we want. That's why I always say that the life is a jiu-jitsu fight.
Mhm.
If you don't fight, the guy is gonna submit you. But if you fight, you're gonna do great. At least you're gonna survive,
Mhm.
And that's why I use the example of the King David because I identify myself so much with the King
Mhm.
David, and I like it so much, the story. And I always believe, I know that he killed Goliath with the stones, but in my imagination, I imagine David pulling guard and doing an armbar.
that was they didn't, the Hebrew writers forgot to put that part, that before he cut his head off with the sword, he used the stone to knock him down.
Yeah.
Then he went up and he got into
Close guard.
yes, he pulled him into his closed guard, swept him, knee on belly, then took his sword out and cut. That's how it really happened, folks. They edited that out of your Bible, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But basically, that's why, I always believe that God supported me with the decision of going to Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yeah.
And then, my mother always called me. She's always telling me, "You are a little David. You are a little David." And I was like, "Oh, thank you, Mom." So cool.
David. Tell her I'm young David, because David later in life, his later life was not as faithful as his early life. But
Unfortunately,
his early life was the epitome of somebody who's being used by God, and so the lesson from David's life that I look at is it's a lesson of start strong and finish strong, and don't finish. Don't, because David, as you see this happen. Actually, this is a good parallel with black belt. You see what happened with David's life, and not in every way, because Bible characters aren't one-dimensional. They're complex. They were real people, and real people battle with sin and pride and ups and downs and faith. And David started so well, and he had the fervor and the zeal and the passion for God and the commitment. And then later in life, he let other things go that he shouldn't have, or he wasn't as good of a father as he should have been, and he let some things happen. And the violence, God said, the sword will not leave your family. His own family experienced incredible violence and political intrigue and all of that stuff. I think there's a lesson there in terms of you can start so well, but if you don't finish the race, then you can end up in ruin. And I see martial artists do that. I see jiu-jitsu. I see people who they were absolute warriors coming up through the ranks. And then around brown belt, sometimes even they get their black belt, they still have the passion, but some have thought, okay, well, now I'm a black belt, I don't have to work as hard anymore. I can relax. I'm a black belt. I made it.
Big mistake.
But you see it whenever they train. Now, I'm not talking about age. Some people, you get to a certain age and your body can't physically keep up. That's not what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about health issues or injuries. Some people, they're black belts, but they can't roll anymore because they have certain different injuries. But I mean, you know what I mean. I'm talking about people who black belt for them becomes the end. And when I got my black belt, I remember thinking, oh, now this is completely new territory. I'm starting over,
Yeah,
and I realize just how much I don't know.
true. That happened to me too. I never felt ready. Like my professor called me and he was like, "Hey, I am planning to go to Miami. I already talked to your professor in Miami, and we are gonna do this bell ceremony. And I am planning to give you the black belt." And I was like, "Wow!" But then I was like, "No, I am not ready." And then when I got my black belt, I had like so much pressure on me
Mhm.
because it's a huge responsibility,
Mhm.
right? And then I was like, I need to be good.
Yeah.
I cannot
Yes.
I cannot like be playing around or go easy and rest because this is not the correct time to do it.
Jiu-Jitsu is one of the martial arts where you have to defend your belt.
Of course.
Every roll, the target on your back gets bigger. So when you got
Yeah.
your blue belt, all the white belts think, "Oh man, now I got to go hard against this person."
Yeah.
When you get your purple belt, the blue belts were like, "Oh, I get to tap this purple belt."
Yeah.
When I go visit somewhere as a black belt, I
Well,
almost don't want to wear my black belt. I want to come in as, put a blue belt on or something and just
Yeah.
have relaxing rolls
mhm.
because everyone wants that
Well,
accomplishment. I tapped a black belt.
yes.
I tapped a black belt.
Yes,
And so they're going to go
exactly.
hard against you.
True. We are a big target when we are black
Big
belts.
target.
And in my case, like I am blind, I am super skinny, little, so I have many targets. And all the people always go hard with me because they
Mhm.
already know who I am and how I roll.
Mhm.
And they just want to tap me so bad. And I
Mhm.
had to defend myself. And in order for do that, I need to have a good cardio.
Mhm.
In order to do that, I need to be doing drills and training every day and getting better every day, always having the correct mentality of a child, or as a white belt that wants to learn something new every day, always trying to be humble and absorb as much information as possible in order to be better.
How do you feel about when you train with, now some people are very, if they're the instructor or they're a black belt, they don't like to ever tap to a lower belt. They think it's a failure if a lower belt taps them. Other people say they're black belts, like Gary Tonin has talked about this, and Gary Tonin with his students, he says he puts himself in the worst positions to try to get out because it makes his escapes better, and he has
Yeah.
amazing escapes.
Mhm.
But the downside is that means he gets tapped a lot by his students because he's working from a terrible position. And so he just looks at it, he said, you just tap. Just tap. You're learning and you're growing and your students are getting better. So some people, there's two different mindsets. Some people say the black belt can't tap because that sets a bad precedent that,
Mhm.
and then others say, no, the black belt should tap all the time because there should be working on things. And so how do you personally handle if a lower belt taps you out, or has a lower belt ever tapped you out? And
Yes,
and
many times.
so how do you handle it? What advice do you have for other black belts or even color belts coming up through the ranks?
This is something that I always say, and it's very funny. Better tap than sorry.
It's true. Better tap than be sorry.
Tapping is the best thing that you can do, no matter what belt is your color. Even if you are a black belt, you need to show a different perspective. You need to show a different mentality about it. Because tapping is the most important thing, it's the most humbling way to say and to recognize that your opponent did better.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to respect that and treat your opponent in the best way as possible, and also congratulate because that opponent has been training also a lot
Mm-hmm.
to achieve that,
Mm-hmm.
And if they tap you, it's a big accomplishment,
Yeah.
especially if they are white belts or blue belts or purple belts, lower belts, it's a big accomplishment for them and they will feel wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time when I was a brown belt, the first time that a white belt tapped me, he got so happy. So first of all, I had to say when I was a brown belt, I stopped training for almost. It's not excuse because that guy is so good. He's winning a lot of tournaments now.
Mhm.
But I stopped training for almost 2 years, and then I was just coming back to train, and they put me to roll against this 220 pounds white belt that he was training every day. He was doing like 4 hours Monday through Friday. He was like he's a blue belt now. He's completely obsessed with jiu-jitsu and competitions. But basically, like they put me to roll with him, and he's huge.
Mhm.
Way bigger than me. And then I was doing half guard. I was comfortable, lazy. I was gassing out. It was my third roll. I think was the last roll that I was going to do because my cardio was terrible. And I was having him. I was doing half guard button. I was so comfortable. And then he tried to do like a choke from top, like a cross choke. And I was, this is not going to happen. He's strong, but nah, it's gonna be fine. So I was protecting my neck, and then he put it, and he put all his weight on me. He put all the pressure, and boom, I felt it. And I was like, I had to tap. So I tapped. And when I tapped, he started to jump. He was so happy. He was the happiest guy in the planet. He was like, I cannot believe that I tapped a brown belt. And I was like, yes, a blind brown belt. And he was like, yeah, but you are not. When I am rolling with you, you are not blind. You are super tough. For me, your blindness is not an excuse. And I was like, okay, yes, it's true. It's the first time that you tap a brown belt. Good for you. And now that guy is a machine. Is unstoppable. His name is Ashley Miham. So if he sees these videos, will be cool. But now he's a blue belt and he's competing a lot. He won Pan Am's last year's. He won the Europes. He's a beast. Super bad, super strong, super technical, and I am very happy for him. But always my advice is to tap, because if you don't tap, you can get injured really bad, and then you're not going to be able to train.
Yeah, your pride will injure you more than your opponent a lot of times.
Especially in competitions, because in competitions the people go tougher, but in the regular trainings you stop because you need to continue training, you need to continue teaching, you need to continue for the black belts, right?
Yeah.
You need to continue competing or doing what you love.
Yeah.
You can
Now, when what was his name? You said Ashley. What was his
Ashley
name?
Miham.
So when Ashley tapped you as a white belt and you were a brown belt, I'm sure there was a part of you that was congratulated to him, but inside we're like, man, that's not going to happen again.
I cannot believe.
And it made you. Did it make you more? Did it push you to go harder and get your cardio back and get your training back, and like it motivated you to really give it to him now whenever you guys roll?
Yeah. That was like, I need to fix this problem. So I started to eat more healthy, and then I started to train more in order to recover my cardio or to gain more cardio, you know? And then like I did it, and he's so tough now that so we haven't rolled in a long time, but the last time that we rolled, he couldn't tap me. He couldn't do anything. Yeah.
That's to me, that's the good part, is even black belts. Well, you were brown belt at the time. Even high belts, brown and black belts, need to be humbled sometimes.
Yeah.
And need to be kept in mind. Hey, just because you achieve now a black belt is a symbol of knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge, and I know of black belts who their bodies don't work anymore the way they used to.
Yeah.
And if we rolled, and my body's breaking down. I've got a couple of injuries. I'm going to have a surgery on my arm, and I've got a condition that keeps me from being able to breathe well and to contort my body. So when I get stacked, sometimes I have difficulty. So we all have things that we have to work around. My jiu-jitsu has to adapt to those things, and but I also know I still have to adapt my jiu-jitsu. I can't just say, well, look at this belt on my waist. That's enough. Just, I'm gonna be in charge, and you just ask me questions and I'll answer them, and don't push me or it's like that would make a very lazy instructor.
Of course.
And a complacent instructor. And I would be doing all of my students a disservice.
Yeah.
To not encourage them. Yeah, try to beat me up. which is something weird. A lot of people, if anybody watching this hasn't done jiu-jitsu, I don't know if any non-jiu-jitsu people are even watching at this point. But there may be some. But it's so hard for people to understand the benefit of getting beat. Like just going to class, and sometimes you're the nail.
Yeah.
And there's a benefit to it because it fuels you and it pushes you.
Yeah. It pushes you to become better and to be more humble, because sometimes we have beautiful days. Some days are like you go to the gym and you tap everyone and you do all the techniques that you want to do and that you had practice, and it's so cool, and you get out from the gym thinking that you are a superhero, that you are the best, right? But there are some days that you go and everybody smash you, someone pass your guard, they tap you more times, and you go like, I feel so bad, I feel like I suck. But that gives you more motivation to continue going and to continue fighting, right?
Yeah.
So it's very good to tap. I always recommend the people to tap.
That's good for people to hear. That's good for people to hear you say that even at black belt you have those days.
Yeah.
Because some people, and I used to think when I was maybe a blue belt, I was a blue belt before I ever rolled with a black belt. And it was the first, because TC was a brown belt when I started. So he and I came up together. He got his black belt and I was a blue belt moving to purple. But so we had a black belt visit for an open mat, and that's the first time I'd ever rolled. I thought black belts knew everything.
Yeah.
And they don't have those days.
They don't have weaknesses.
That they come in. Yeah, I couldn't imagine a black belt coming in and being like, I stink today. My jiu-jitsu is terrible today. Now, and I've been black belt for 5 years now.
Wow.
Coming up on 5 years. There are days where I think, man, I don't know, I should burn my black belt. Like, I leave the gym thinking I should just burn this belt, go back and put my blue belt back on.
Yeah. I think we all have those type of days, but we have to be. That's why I think the jiu-jitsu people must be super strong mentally speaking.
Yes.
Because when we go through those days, it's tough, but then we have the motivation to continue going to train and to continue getting better and never stop.
Yeah. So as you're a competitive jiu-jitsu athlete, what's your goal with competition? You're going to obviously you're going to compete this weekend, but beyond this weekend, what's your goal in the sport? What do you want to achieve in competition jiu-jitsu?
The reason why I compete is because I want to be an example of inspiration and superation for the people, is to get to know more people and that they could know what I am doing to motivate people and to help blind people, So it's more to motivate. Also, obviously, I love to win tournaments and medals and show that I have a real technique and to test myself,
Yeah.
Because I am a fighter. All my life, I had fight against the life,
Yeah.
It has been tough. So, I always like to fight. So
and now you have the skill to fight back.
Yeah, so that's why I call my project the Blind Warriors, because I am the real blind warrior. I am always fighting, and that's why I love to compete.
Yeah.
And also to meet people and to motivate them to continue fighting, not only in Jiu-Jitsu, but beyond that. That's my goal, to continue motivating more people and to continue pushing to the limit myself.
And what do you what's your goal in the sport? What would you like to accomplish winning, in terms of winning? Do you want to do just IBJJF? Would you like to compete in other tournaments, other local events, maybe, or do super fights? Gi only? Do you ever want to have any no-gi competition, EBI, things like that? Tell me where you are with that.
So I like to compete in all the tournaments. Now I am more focused in IBJJF because, unfortunately, like all the high competitors only compete IBJJF.
Hmm.
Sometimes when I go to little tournaments like Naga or New Brick that I do compete or Tap Cancer Out,
Hmm.
they don't have black belts
Right,
sometimes.
right.
So I had to fight against brown or purple, which I do. I don't have any problem.
Hmm.
But I want to be able to test myself more with black belts. That's why I get more focus in IBJJF.
Right.
But I compete every tournament.
Do you do
available.
IBJJF no gi as well, or gi only?
Only gi.
Only gi.
Yeah, but if I had the possibilities, the thing is that it's expensive, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why I am able to do gi. But if I could do no gi, I do it.
So people don't realize, some people watching this, it is expensive.
Yeah.
You're not getting money
Mm-hmm.
to compete. You are having to pay to compete. You're having to pay your transportation, your entry fee. You have to pay dues to keep your IBJJF membership.
Yeah.
And so part of it is
It's hard.
you have to have sponsors to help you with that. And if anybody's watching this and you want to help sponsor, what is there a way that they could sponsor you, or they could reach out to you to help?
They could contact me through my Instagram account, that is Carlos Alvarez BJJ.
Mhm.
But like, I would really appreciate the support too, because every support is good. But I also had like thank God I had like a very good sponsors, like
Mhm.
I had a few classmates and super good friends from my gym that when they knew that I wanted to compete, they wanted to help me because they know how
Yeah.
tough I am in the mats, and also how is my story,
Mhm.
and I am a big motivation for them, and they are always helping me, and it always is good to receive any support,
Yeah,
I
I
also
do
want
know.
to mention these guys because these guys are very important.
Mhm.
My good friend, his name is Mauricio Padilla. He's a super good lawyer, but also like he's a super good person. He's always supporting me with the tournaments. He's like, tell me what tournament you want to do and I help you. And I'm like, wow, this is so
Wonderful.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I always believe that he's an angel that God sent me to help me.
Wonderful.
And I have a few people that had help, other classmates
Yeah.
that are awesome. But always any support is appreciated because especially when you had to travel, you had to go to a hotel,
Mhm.
you need to get the food and everything. And if you are in a diet, it's complicated. So whatever support is really appreciated.
Yeah, and hopefully one day the sport will grow and there will be more opportunities for people that are competing to start getting paid.
Yeah.
And I know that's on the gi side.
Mhm.
On the no gi side, you're already seeing that with
Yeah.
no gi super fights and events where athletes are getting paid, and you do have
super good
people pushing that. And ADCC was recently, and just seeing how big a stage ADCC has now, it's very cool to see grappling coming into its own. I think gi is still hard because you have to be more educated to understand what's happening in gi jiu-jitsu.
Mhm.
And I think IBJJF has to do a better job of moving beyond just being a jiu-jitsu only thing, and kind of, I don't know it. I'm not an expert in the sport. I focus more on the self-defense side of it, but hopefully there will be more opportunities,
more support athletes. Yeah, that will be awesome.
Yeah, because the amount of money that you guys pay to go compete, most people would be like, wait, what? You're paying
That's
that
why
much?
people don't compete,
Yes. Yeah, that's probably the number one reason is
Mhm.
competing is not cheap.
Yeah.
It's expensive. The flip side, though, is if you are successful in competition, then your name gets out there and people want to learn from it. So a seminar,
It open doors.
a seminar by somebody who's a black belt,
opportunities.
like you're a very good black belt and you're a very good instructor.
Thank you.
And I encourage anybody watching this, bring Carlos to do a seminar sometime, especially if you want to motivate. He taught our kids and he taught our adults, and he wants to do more teaching. And so if anybody listening, bring him to just hang out with him and meet him, because he's a great guy. and he has very good jiu-jitsu, but let him teach, and you as an instructor will learn from having to teach someone who can't see, and how they, and watching someone who can't see how they teach. To me, that was fun. I learned a lot from watching you teach
Thank
that
you
will
very
help me
much.
as a teacher. But hopefully, you know, the more you compete and the more your name gets out there, that opens opportunities for you to be able to go teach more.
Yeah, that will be awesome.
And then do you ever want to own your own academy?
Yes, in the future, I would love to have my own academy because my main goal is to help the
Mhm.
blind community. Also, I want to teach to sighted people that are able to see,
Yeah.
but I want to have like a, that's one of my dreams, to have like a blind jiu-jitsu competitors going to the tournaments and
Mhm.
fight against people that are able to see, and to be like a example, to be a movement that do something good for the blind, so
That'd be wonderful. I hope you're able to do it, and it would be amazing because of your story, and not just your story,
mhm.
but your mom's story,
Yeah,
and her leaving Ecuador solely to give you the
to help
life
me.
that you could have in America with
Mhm.
all of the, because in Ecuador you've said there's not the opportunity because
No,
there, for people that have disabilities,
true.
you're limited there. But here in America, you've been able to come, and your mom, I've been impressed by her devotion to you, and you know,
Mhm.
she's been there with you.
She's awesome.
She's great. I
She's
love
my
your mom.
superhero.
I'm excited for her English to get better so that I will be able to start talking to her in future visits. So tell her that I said she has to work on her English hard so that she and
Yeah,
I can have good discussions.
I
And I will
gonna.
work on my Spanish, and we'll try to make it somewhere in the middle. But she reminded me a lot. My both of my parents, my father was a pastor,
Oh,
and my mother has been one of my biggest, not just supporters, but people that I turn to for when I have anything, when I have a need, a problem. My parents are who I call, and who I still talk to, even as a 44-year-old. You know, but I'm still dad's boy, mom's boy,
of
and
course,
you never stop
always. You
being that. You
never.
always will.
Yeah.
But my parents have been. My dad's pastor. He gave me the foundation of he. You're surrounded by books on both sides of you right now. That is
Yeah.
because of my dad. He
Wow.
instilled in me the desire for study, biblical study, and for critical thinking, and not just believing something because somebody preaches it or somebody teaches it, but actually studying scripture in the original languages, Greek and Hebrew. And he instilled that in me. But my mom was the one who would take me to the library every week to pick out a book. Or she would say, you have to bring home 6 books or 5 books or however many, and you have to read them. And then I'll take you back in 2 weeks and you get 5 more. And so they really encouraged and fueled my desire for reading.
Nice.
And
Very good.
fun thing is, my dad, when I left so I did karate as a kid. I was a karate fighter.
Mhm.
And I did tournaments where you do point sparring and you do your forms and weapons and things like that. So I grew up doing that in the late 80s and early 90s. And then when I left for college, my dad started taking Taekwondo.
Wow.
And he got his Taekwondo black belt.
Nice.
And as a preacher, so he was the preacher doing Taekwondo, and so I would come home from college, and sometimes I would get to work with him on his forms, on his kicks, his
Wow, that's super
punches.
cool.
I was there when he tested for his black belt, and the fun thing was his best friend in the class, Taekwondo class, was a rabbi. And so you had a preacher
So
and a
cool.
rabbi,
Rabbi.
and they would train together, and they would try to beat each other up, and then they would go have lunch, and then they would argue about whether Jesus was the Messiah or not, because the rabbi didn't believe he was, and my dad did. But
Yeah.
they had this friendship. And I say argue, they would discuss it, and they would challenge each other, but they were genuinely good friends. And I think that influenced my vision with RefugeeJitsu, even from an early age, is when I have students that I train with, either teammates at Leadership Martial Arts or my refugee students and their family, and they come from different beliefs, different backgrounds, different faiths. I don't see them as in any way an enemy.
No.
Or in any way, I don't avoid them. I don't say, well, they're not a Christian, so I can't be friends with them. It's like, I look at that as like, great. They would probably never come to my church, so I get to meet them here at Jiu-Jitsu, and we get to become friends that way. I love that about Jiu-Jitsu. It brings together people that you would never cross paths with normally.
From all parts of the world, different beliefs. And when you're doing Jiu-Jitsu, like everybody's equals, and we are all learning together, all meeting each other, and all respecting each other.
Yeah.
It's so cool, right?
That's how it should be. At its best, that's how it is. Jiu-Jitsu is like everything. You do have some bad people in it. You do have some people that tarnish what it should be. You do have some drama. You have some high-level people who have done some terrible things.
Sometimes that happens,
Yeah.
Like in every sport.
In every sport.
Everything in life, like we will always have good people, bad people. So it's like that.
Yeah. But even in the midst of that, Jiu-Jitsu does give you have community that I don't see in any other thing that I've ever seen, any other sport, any other activity, any other hobby. There's just something about it. I tell people, other than Jesus, Jiu-Jitsu has changed more lives than anything I've ever seen.
It's true. That's why I always tell to the people that Jiu-Jitsu is an instrument or a gift or a present, whatever you want to call it, that God used it to help me. Because it's the best therapy. I had met so many wonderful people, and I had learned so much to be humble and to be grateful for everything.
Who are some of the most memorable people you've ever gotten to meet or train with that are maybe famous people that you've had to train with? You've mentioned a few to me when you've talked about who you trained with in Brazil and in Florida. And then who are a couple of people that you hope to get to meet and train with someday? So let's start with who you have trained with before. You can drop names. You can say, I had to train with this person or this because I want to know. And people that are watching, we always like to hear stories of who we've gotten to train with over the years. So who are some people you've gotten to train with that I would just be like, man, that's amazing?
So in 2013, I got the wonderful possibility to travel to Brazil. I was a blue belt. I was already totally blind. And we went to this gym called Alliance Jiu-Jitsu because I used to belong to the Alliance Jiu-Jitsu team.
Yeah.
And the main professor, because I went to Sao Paulo, so the main professor, his name is Fabio Gurgel.
Fabio Gurgel is a legend.
Of the Alliance Jiu-Jitsu team.
Yes.
So I spent 1 month in his academy. And the good thing that happened is that in that time that I went, they were doing a no-gi Jiu-Jitsu camp. They were preparing for the Jiu-Jitsu wars. So basically almost all the Alliance Jiu-Jitsu stars were there, like Tarsis Humphreys, Leo Nogueira, Michael Langhi, Gabi Garcia, Luana Alsugir, Bruno Malfacin, and many other guys that are super tough.
And how many did you get to meet all of them or to interact with them, or how did they treat you, or how did
they treated me so well? And my professor that was there with us, he introduced me all of them, and I got to roll with all of them.
Wonderful.
It was amazing. Bruno Malfacin should meet me like 7 times in 6 minutes. I was so impressed because he's so little,
Yeah.
And then Gabi Garcia gave me a award. She's huge.
She is a beast. Yeah.
Those guys treated me so well. And I had a very wonderful experience. Also,
do you remember what it was like rolling with Michael Langhi?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Is he just like iron? I couldn't move him at all.
Yeah.
when I rolled. I would just, and he's so nice. He was
So
so nice.
so nice.
But
Yeah.
I'm gonna send him this link so he can listen. But he was so nice, but I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything
No,
to
no,
him.
it's impossible to do something. So
Did
tough.
you get to roll with Fabio Gurgel, or is he not
Um,
rolling anymore?
no, I could when I went there I couldn't roll because he was super busy
Yeah,
teaching and also because of the camp. But
sure.
the super cool thing is that when I came back to Ecuador, I was already a blue belt with 2 stripes,
Hmm.
and I spent almost 3 years in the blue belt because when I became blind, I was a blue belt, so I stopped for a little bit. So
Yeah.
it took me some time to become a purple belt.
Hmm.
But Fabio Gurgel went to do a seminar in Ecuador in 2013 in November,
Hmm.
and they surprised me and they gave me my purple belt. So
Oh,
Fabio
that's
Gurgel
awesome.
gave me my purple belt.
That is
And it was
fantastic.
super cool.
Having Fabio Gurgel put a purple belt on you, that's
Yeah.
no small accomplishment. That was before you had lost your, was that after you had lost your sight completely?
After I lost my
When
sight
you went to
completely,
Brazil,
I was totally blind already.
so you had already lost your sight when you went to Brazil to
Yeah.
train.
Mhm.
That's so cool though that you got to
And it
train
was so
there.
funny because when I went there, the people saw me and they were thinking that I was just a guest that was going to stay sitting or something.
Hmm.
And when they saw me putting the gi on, they were like, wow, you do jiu-jitsu, this is so awesome. And everybody there treated me so well. Was a big blessing for me.
That's
Was super
cool.
good for my heart, because
Yeah,
Brazilians are super good.
yeah,
Super good people.
yeah. That's wonderful. So, and then who else have you trained with people in Florida that are people of note? Who else have you had a chance to train with and visit with?
So in 2014, I got the possibility to go to compete the World's Jiu-Jitsu Championships in
Hmm.
Long Beach,
Hmm.
California, and I went to Cobrinha's gym. So
Okay.
I met Cobrinha.
Cobrinha's so nice, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kennedy Marcel. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but I only met Cobrinha, and I also met this guy. He's a super tough competitor. He trains he's a Marcelo Garcia student.
Hmm.
Matheus
Hmm.
Diniz.
Diniz. Yep.
I
Yeah.
met him there. Also, Fabio, this guy from Brazil, Fabio Caloi, he was there too. He's a very famous guy too.
Hmm.
Gianni Grippo. I
Hmm.
met Gianni Grippo there,
Yep.
and I had the opportunity to roll with those guys. And
Oh, that's
it was
good.
super cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
And then in Miami, Leo Nogueira,
Hmm.
that he's also a super tough, famous jiu-jitsu fighter.
Yep.
That was the first jiu-jitsu gym that I went to train in Miami
Oh, very cool.
with Leo Nogueira, and he gave me my 2 first stripes in the purple belt, which was awesome.
Nice.
He was super impressed with my skills and with my determination, and I trained with him for almost 3 months.
Okay.
And then he moved, and
Mhm.
I had to look for other gyms. And also, I had the opportunity to train for 8 months with the legend Mario Sperry.
Mario Sperry.
Yeah.
He is a legend. He was just at ADCC at the Legends seminar that they did.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's so nice.
Yeah.
So I always go to visit him because unfortunately I had some problems and I had to move from his gym. Not with his people or with the gym, but with economic problems, and I couldn't continue going there because it was a little far from my house.
Yeah.
So I had to change. But I trained there for 8 months and I learned so much.
I
And he's so nice. And every time that I go to visit him, he's always teaching me stuff and treating me so well. He likes me so much. He's always hugging me and treating me so well.
I was hoping that I would get to talk to him at ADCC and draw, because I do portraits, and I was going to draw his portrait next. And I
have his contact. I always talk to him, so I can.
I'm going to send it when I do his portrait, his trading card. I'm going to send it to you and have you send it to him for me and make the introduction. Yeah. And did you try? Have you met Ricardo Laborio.
I think in a competition only
Mhm.
by handshake and everything, but nothing like.
I want to
really
connect the two of you, you know, because his daughter being blind, and he has a heart for teaching jujitsu to the blind, and
Yeah.
that's a connection. You guys need to know each other.
Yeah,
And
that
he's
will
not
be
too far.
super
He's in
cool.
Tampa, I
He
think.
shared. You remember the Matt May video? He
Uh-huh.
shared my story and he put red hearts and
Yes,
everything.
yes.
So maybe someday
I'm gonna
have the
do what I can to
possibility.
solidify that connection,
That will be super cool.
and then maybe do like a benefit seminar one day for Blind Warrior and RefugeeJitsu, and yeah. So you came. Well, let's finish it. We don't have. I want to keep you too long. We're coming up on 2 hours, and I don't just want you to say I had a good time. They were great. I want to hear what your experience was
Yes.
with the Refugee Jitsu outreach that I lead, because you got to not just teach, but you got to talk to some of the students, and some you got to talk to in Spanish, which I was
Yeah.
so glad for.
Mhm.
And you got to meet, and your mom and your aunt got to meet a couple of the parents, the mothers
Yep.
that came. And that was, to me, that was really special. But I didn't know, because I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know what all, and you don't have to share anything private, but I want to hear about your experience at Refugee Jitsu and how it was for you, because that's what, you know, we brought you here. I wanted my kids to meet you.
Mhm.
They were I could watch their faces while they were watching you, and they were so curious. And at first they were hesitant to ask questions, but then once you started answering questions, then more hands started raising, and they got more comfortable. So we're going to definitely bring you back at some point, because I know they would want to spend more time with you. But tell me, and tell the viewers and whoever's listening to this about your experience with Refugee Jitsu.
So that experience was something that it really touched my heart in a deep way. Especially like I remember that when this thing of the mat made video happen, a lot of people started to sending me messages and everything. I wanna touch this topic and explain how it happened, because for me it is a big blessing to be here. So like I remember that the Professor JM sent me the message through Instagram, and he was like, hopefully you are able to listen to this message, and hopefully you are able to come, and if not, please just let me know. And I was like, when he sent me the message explaining about what he is doing to help the refugee kids, like I felt something in my heart that I don't have words to describe. And I was like, I want to be part of this. I want to help. I want to support. And I sent him a message extremely fast. I think I took a little bit to reply, because like I had like a bunch of messages,
Yeah.
but and I replied and I was like, yes, let's do it. When you want to do it, and we coordinate everything, and I can hear. And last night was a very wonderful experience, because I am Hispanic too, and I identify myself with those kids. Many of the kids are not Hispanic, but I identify myself with those people, because like I know how hard it is to come from other country and to come here, and you have to learn the language, and then your parents have to work like nobody's business in order to pay the bills and to survive, and sometimes your parents don't have the possibility to support you or to help you in the things that you want to do, and I know how hard it is, right? So I understood their situation, and also because of the bullying, because they come from other countries, and maybe because they don't speak well the language, they make fun of them, and they suffer from bullying or rejection. And that is something that I'm gonna apologize for the word, but it completely sucks. And it's very sad that people will bully this type of kids, that the life for them had been super tough, you know. So like for me to be able to talk to them and to motivate them and to push them was something super cool. Because I was feeling that they were looking at me like a superhero.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, he's blind,
Yeah.
and he's a black belt. And
I told them you were Daredevil.
Yeah.
I told them, I was like, you guys know Daredevil, right? There's a real Daredevil right over there. He's even got the cane, and he does Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm going to let him choke you if you're bad, so you better listen to him.
Yeah. So for me, was a very wonderful experience because you are doing a really good job because you are teaching them values, principles, and how to be better persons every day. And all the tools that you are giving them is amazing. I can really tell that God is using you to help these kids that are in a super need, but also to help the future generation because these kids are the future generation, and the generations will be better because of the job that you are doing, you know. So that's something super cool. And like when I was talking to them, I felt identified because I also suffer from bullying. And I also had to come to this country with my mother and to learn the language, and then to stay here is not easy. You know?
And you didn't know any English when you got here.
No, nothing. I couldn't speak any word.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I want people to realize that they're listening, because people listening probably think, oh, you grew up listening and speaking some English, and then you studied it very hard, and then you came to America. No, you learned here.
Yeah, I learned it here. I study a lot.
Yeah.
And I used to pray and I ask God, please, Lord, help me to learn English. I want to do it. It's so important.
Yeah.
And then he did it. He helped me.
He
Also,
has.
I put my part. You know, I study a lot, and that was super helpful. But what I wanted to say is that you guys should support this wonderful cause that the Professor JM is doing, because he's doing this with all his heart. He's not doing this for other how I can say the word, with other
You can say it in Spanish. I'll find a translation.
with other como intereses.
Okay.
So,
other
like,
motives.
Mhm.
With other motives and ulterior motives is what we would say. Yes.
Because you are doing this because you really want to help, because you want to have a better future for these kids, and you want to show them what a real Christian must be. Because I remember last night you were telling me, no, it's very sad when Christians preach that you must be good, but if you don't do nothing about it, it doesn't work, right? So actions is what really means. Like in the Bible said that if you are like a good tree, you will have always like good fruits.
Yes.
And the good fruits are the actions, you know? So what you are doing, you are showing to all that kids that maybe they don't believe in Jesus, maybe they are not Christians, but you are showing them a very good example of what a Christian is.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was what I told you last night. You know, we don't preach at RefugeeJitsu. We don't teach them discipleship or because we have my first students. I told you they were devout Muslims from Afghanistan, and they're coming to a country where they're already feared. Refugees in America, people fear them because there's some people have told them, and sadly, even some Christians have said, well, this is how terrorists are coming into the country. They're sneaking in as refugees, so we can't reach out to these people. Or if they're Muslim, they're just trying to infiltrate America to bring down this country. And I just listened to that, and it made me so angry.
Super sad.
It was like, that's not true. One, it's not true. And two, even if it were true, Jesus still calls us to serve and to love and to reach out and to bring in the orphan, the widow, the foreigner, the stranger, the alien, the immigrant. And I was just hearing Christians were acting so unchristian toward the very community that Jesus was a part of. Jesus was a refugee. Jesus had to flee Bethlehem to go to Egypt. He was a refugee fleeing for his life, and that's who we worship. That's our Savior. So there's no way a Christian can turn their back on refugees or immigrants, even immigrants, even people just coming to have a better life. You can't turn your back on them and still claim to faithfully love Jesus, because you're turning your back on Jesus. What you did to the least of these, you did to me. So I look at how we treat the margins of society is a direct reflection of what kind of fruit we're bearing in our own life.
Yeah.
And if your doctrine is sound and your theology is good and you can preach the Bible and get people shouting and screaming and singing and hollering, but you don't reach across and love your enemy, then your faith is dead.
Yeah, that's why we got to do what we preach,
Exactly. And so for me, it was reaching out to specifically Muslim refugees, Middle Eastern refugees, because in America, they are the most feared.
Yeah.
But because of after 9/11, but also Hispanic refugees, because in America, there's a lot of people have the misconception they're just coming to steal my job. They're just coming to get the government to give them money, and then they're going to live and going to do all this stuff, and they're going to da-da-da. And I'm like, you don't understand the hardship, And so I meet people like your mom, who has sacrificed a good life in Ecuador for you to come and have the possibilities that you would not have in Ecuador. That is the kind of people that I want as my neighbor. Like I tell people, if you could choose your neighbor, choose a refugee, because they'll be the best neighbors you'll ever have, because they know what it takes they know what it's like to come from nothing and to work for things. And it's a sad misconception. So I was so glad when you could come and when you could speak to my students and their parents in Spanish.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Man, what was that like? Getting to meet some of the parents and to talk to them, and for your mom and for your aunt, what was that like for them?
It was a nice experience, because my mother, my aunt, and I, we always want to be like instruments in the hands of God. We want to serve the Lord in everything that we do, and it was super cool to be able to give them a message of hope, and to let them know that they should continue helping their kids, and that they should continue working for them and continue treating them in the best way as possible, and giving them that support that sometimes they needed, because sometimes they don't have a person that could tell them that, especially because sometimes the parents don't speak the language.
Right.
Only the kids speak English, but then the parents, they don't speak any English. So they don't have the possibility to speak with other people with other mentality, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they are alone, working so much, and the time is super valuable, right? And sometimes they don't have the time to spend with the family.
Yeah, because they're having to work so hard.
Yeah, so that's why my mother, my aunt, and I, we were able to give them a very nice message of hope, and to tell them that they are doing the things right, because they are working so much in order to survive in this country, What I want to say is that what you're doing is so awesome, and I want to continue helping. I want to continue supporting in whatever way that I can, and I encourage the people to donate to this wonderful cause, because it's a real one. It's a honest one. It's a cause that really came from the Professor J.M. Hart, and I am pretty sure that God inserted that in his heart.
Well, I would tell you this: I never wanted to teach kids.
Yeah.
I only teach adults at the Renzo Gracie class.
Wow.
I only teach the adults. So I joke around. I don't like teaching kids. And I said, only God could make me teach a bunch of kids. And what does God do? You're going to have a children's jiu-jitsu ministry to refugee, immigrant, and local lower income kids. And now those are some of my favorite kids to teach. I can't explain it other than God has to give you a burden for something, and then he gives you what you need to do that thing. And in my case, it was the desire and the ability and the love to teach children that I didn't have before I started this program. It's a miracle.
No, but it's God, it's God that the one that put that love and that ability to do it, because some of the kids, they don't have a father, or
Right.
maybe they don't have that figure to
Mhm.
follow, right? And you are for them that. I remember that I talked to your student Brian, and he was telling me, the Professor JM is like my father. He has helped me so much. He has supported me so much, and he's like my father. I like him. I like that guy so much. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. And it's true, because you are that figure, that example that those kids will follow. And you are doing a super wonderful job.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I was glad they got to meet you. And I always know no one person can be what everyone needs. So I want my students to meet other instructors. I want more volunteers to come and that they get to work with them. And I'm always trying to bring more people into the organization just to volunteer, just to see it.
To feel the experience.
Yeah, just to experience it, because one of the goals is I want other instructors. When I started RefugeeJitsu, my specific goal was I want this to just show other jiu-jitsu instructors what they can do in their community. Because they may not have a high refugee population, but every city in America has kids who can't afford jiu-jitsu, who need jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so if it's an instructor that's like, okay, you have an academy, great. Give 5 scholarships a year to kids in the neighborhood who need jiu-jitsu but can't afford it. If there's a kid whose mother cleans houses, have her come clean your house every 3 months, and her child gets to train with you. Like find ways to even if it's trade, you're not just giving, just find a way, make the kid work at the academy, and that will cover their dues. If they come in and they mop the mats, they clean the bathrooms every Saturday or something like that, I want to encourage jiu-jitsu instructors, find ways to make jiu-jitsu accessible to the people that need it, because they really do, and it will change kids' lives
for sure
if you start them on that path.
That's something very cool, and I agree completely with that message. You professors, please help, because there are many people in need of Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu could be a super good tool for someone to success. For example, in my case, I want to share this, when I was a brown belt, I couldn't train for 2 years, and then I came back to Jiu-Jitsu, and my mother, she works really hard, and she's a single mother. My father doesn't help us anymore, so my mother is the one that had to pay all the bills, and Jiu-Jitsu is so expensive, and I couldn't afford it. And when I used to go to the gyms that I went, all the professors used to help me, because I told them about my story, and they saw my determination and my jiu-jitsu skills, and they always giving me the first school gave me a super huge discount, and I was only paying $80 a month, and that was super cool. And then in the second school, the same thing happened, and then in the school that I am now, in the beginning, when I was a brown belt, he also asked me to pay for 80, but then one time my mother lost her job and she couldn't continue working for a while, and the professor was like, you know what, Carlos, don't worry, don't pay me nothing. And he helped me so much. My professor name is Enrique Gamafilio. His gym is called Gamafilio Martial Arts. And then when I got my black belt, the things got way better, and he saw all my skills, teaching and everything and helping the people, and he offered me a job, and now I am working there. I teach the 7 a.m. class, and I am competing in the highest level. A lot of people had support me, and that's why I said this to the professors, because Jiu-Jitsu could really change lives like it did in mine.
Yeah. If he had just said, "Oh, you can't pay, get lost,"
Yeah.
you wouldn't be who you are today. But because you had that instructor pouring into you, and that's so huge. So if you are an instructor, if you're a martial arts owner out there, doesn't mean you let students take advantage of you. It doesn't mean students just say, "Well, I don't want to pay." No, it's the ones who you know your students, you know the ones who really need it, but who just can't afford it. Try to find ways to reach those people, because you could have a Carlos Alvarez right in your midst and not even know it.
Or maybe a world champion, or someone that is gonna success so much.
Well, you'll be world champion. You're keeping at it, so that's the next goal. It's world
Hopefully.
champion, but it'll start with winning this weekend. And so, well, I appreciate it. I'm going to ask you this, and this I am getting this on camera, because I know, Carlos, people are going to ask me, is he married? Does he have kids? What's his? So tell me, what's your personal life situation? Are you married? Do you have kids? What?
Right now I am single. I don't have kids, but I am waiting for the correct woman to
So
get
you're
married.
single and open.
Yeah, I am looking for a
ladies,
nice woman, Christian woman.
Ladies, if you love Jesus,
and
you love Jiu-Jitsu, and you want to meet an amazing black belt, then he is single. So I'm gonna encourage it, and I may try to send some people your way if I meet. But you have to do the same for me in Miami. If you go down and meet a lovely lady down there who loves Jiu-Jitsu and loves Jesus, and let's talk. We can hook each other up. You have to be in America. We have the phrase "the wingman." Do you know that phrase?
Yeah.
Your wingman. So you'll be my wingman. I'll be your wingman, and we'll look out for each other. So, because it's hard being single and Christian, unmarried in the churches. Sometimes you don't feel like you belong. Everyone's married and they have families, and you're just like, okay, well, I'm just here. Us singles have to look out for each other, and we always have to be on the lookout to set each other up or to introduce, because it may not be a match, but they may know someone who is a match. So it's not networking. It's like Jiu-Jitsu. You just need to network. Carlos, thank you so much for sitting in here at the dojo with us. You're our first in-person guest we've ever had, which is exciting for me because we get to talk face to face. And how is the best way for people to reach you, follow you, and connect with you if they want to support Blind Warriors, or if they want to just reach out and support you in your career? What's the best way?
The best way, you guys could find me in Instagram or Facebook. My Facebook is Carlos Andres Alvarez, and then my Instagram is at Carlos Alvarez BJJ altogether. So I wanted to mention who I want to meet of the Jiu-Jitsu athletes.
Oh yes, what athletes
and
do
I
you
want
want
to
to
call
meet?
out to Gordon Ryan.
Let's
super fight.
Yes, let's do here. Turn and look at the camera here.
A lot.
So we'll do this. Hey, this is J.M. Smith. I'm here at Disciple Dojo, and I am with Professor Carlos Alvarez, and he is the first blind Hispanic Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's competing this weekend down in Charleston. He's the blind warrior. He is the Jiu-Jitsu daredevil, completely blind, can't see, but he wants to drop a challenge. What did you say you wanted to do?
I want to have a super fight against Gordon Ryan.
Gordon Ryan, he's calling you out.
Yeah.
Are you gonna heel hook him?
I'm gonna heel hook him, and
he's gonna heel hook you in the gi. In the gi?
With the gi or no gi?
Oh, gi or no gi, Gordon. It doesn't matter. He'll do either.
I am 134 pounds.
134 pounds of fury coming at you, Gordon. So this guy, you better get in touch with him.
But for real, for me, will be a big honor to be able to meet you and to train with you. Also to fight. Let's fight.
Yeah, no, for real though, Gordon. Carlos would love to connect with you at some point, and so I'm gonna try to make this happen because how often do you get to train with somebody who's completely blind and yet is a skilled black belt? I've rolled with him. He's good. So, us. You got to say us. Good Brazilian. Anybody else that you would like to meet that I can try to connect you with?
Marcelo Garcia.
I wish I could. I don't know Marcelo
Oh, you don't know
personally.
Marcelo?
I mean, I've met him, but I don't.
Well, the Professor
know.
Renzo, we already did it. So
Yeah, we sent one to Renzo, and then we're going to try to get you over to Lucas's because he's going to be there today. So Carlos is here at my friend Lucas Lepri's school. And how do you feel?
I am feeling so happy.
Yeah.
This is a big blessing. It's a dream come true, and I am really thankful with you, Professor JM, for this opportunity.
Oh, no, that's
to be
okay.
here. I just met one of my favorites.
Oh, he got something for you.
I shirt for you, man.
Oh, you got a Lucas Lepri shirt. Yeah.
Shirt for the academy.
Oh,
Awesome. Thank you, of course.
you.
Oh, good.
It's a black shirt. I hope you enjoy.
Yes, beautiful.
Of
Thank you
course.
very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
All right, thank you so much, Lucas. Have a great day.
Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Carlos, ven. Está
Not even waiting, just put it on right now.
Soluso.
Él es de Ecuador, Carlos.
Ah, de Ecuador.
Ajá.
Sí.
¿De qué parte de Guayaquil?
¿Y ustedes hoy aquí también?
Guayaquil.
Me quedó perfecta.
Oh, looks good. Perfect. Yes, flat. You got to show the muscles. Come on, show that the diet you've been. Yeah. Bowie likes it too.
Sí, yo recién me...